You can have an opportunity to listen to the national broadcast on July 17th. There's so much happening, but we would not be here this moment if it hadn't been for our amazing pioneers, those justice warriors who took to the streets in the 1960s and 70s and made it possible to create an entity called SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who have now created the SNCC Legacy Project. We are so indebted to so many names that are so critical in this moment. So I am so happy to introduce to our audience that this is his inaugural appearance on Igniting Change, but he's no stranger to those who are involved in the civil rights and racial justice movements. I am talking about Courtland Cox, who is a longstanding civil rights activist who played a pivotal role in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, during the 1960s and 70s to its demise. He worked alongside key figures like John Lewis, Ella Baker, come on now, so many other amazing leaders, and he was deeply involved in organizing the 1964 Freedom Summer and the Selma to Montgomery marches. You heard me, because without those marches, what do we not have? We don't have the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He was so instrumental. He currently serves as the board chair of the SNCC Legacy Project. In this role, he works to preserve and amplify the history and lessons of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, supporting a new generation of activists and understanding the strategies and struggles of the civil rights movement. He's also a key organizer in contemporary efforts like the July 17th Good Trouble Lives On mobilization, and he's continuing to advocate for voting rights and racial justice. I saw him ignite. Daryl, he set it on fire, a meeting of 900 activists this last Saturday. And people were just enthralled. It is our honor, it is our pleasure to welcome the mighty bridge builder from this moment to the next. He's living proof that good trouble still lives on. Welcome, Courtland Cox.
Hi, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us, for being here with us this afternoon to talk about what's going on in our country, to talk about the past, the present, and the future. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to, start by asking you if you would tell our wonderful audience from around the country and the world why did you get involved? How did you get involved in SNCC? Why did you get involved in SNCC? What was it like when you made that decision to become part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee?
Okay, when I began in 1960, the MAGA people were in control when it came to race. So Black people could not go to any restaurant that they wanted to have a meal. They were restricted to where they could live. They could not get any loans. The jobs were restricted. And so as a young person coming out going to college at Howard University, I looked around and saw the world controlled by the people of MAGA, which we're fighting today, who said that, in fact, in order for them to succeed, I must not succeed. And so, therefore, I said at that point, this is not going to stand, and that we will begin to fight them in the places that were most visible. And those two places that were most visible really centered around public accommodations. Public accommodations, one, in terms of transportation, on the buses, interstate buses, trailways, and Greyhound. So if Black people got on the bus in the South, they had to sit in the back. And even in the North, going from here to New York City and so forth, Black people could not, in fact, go into any restaurant. So at the age of 19, I decided to begin to resist the most obvious form of oppression of the Black community that faced the middle class. Not the most because I wasn't, I was 19, so I saw what I saw in front of me. And we said, and a number of us began to challenge each other to say, this is not going to stand, and we will do whatever is necessary to make sure that we resist the laws that happen, that we have to deal with, and try to create a new reality.
So would you have been a student at Howard at that point, Mr. Cox?
Yes. I came to Howard University in 1960. I actually was born in New York, lived with my grandparents in the Caribbean until I was 12 years old. Then I came back to live in New York, and then decided to come to Howard University. So, and Howard University, I'm with a number of students. And there's one event that really made, when I talked to all my peer groups, or when I talked to all the people who were like me, the one event that really struck them, whether they lived in Mississippi, whether they lived in New York, whether they lived in Illinois, whether they lived in Georgia, the most important event occurred in 1955, the murder of Emmett Till. And
yes.
I was 14 years old. Emmett Till was 14 years old. And if you look at most of the SNCC people, they basically were somewhere between 13 and 16 years old. And Emmett Till represented, what a great fear, and a fear in the sense that if they could do it to him, they can do it to me, and therefore we need to start fighting. So for me and for most people in SNCC, they will tell you the most important event in terms of their lifetime and bringing them into the movement was the murder of Emmett Till. Now, I started acting on things when I got to Howard in terms of demonstrations, public accommodations, and so forth. But what really triggered my interest in the movement was the murder of Emmett Till. And also, the other thing that was also important in terms of demonstrations, we're talking about the John Lewis, the activity with John Lewis. People have to remember, in 1955, the Montgomery bus boycott, Black women decided to walk and demonstrate and make sure that they were not going to be insulted when they were put on their buses. So they just didn't do it for a day. They started out to be a day, but they continued for 1 year until they succeeded. And one of the things that's really important for people to understand, whether we're looking at the life of John Lewis or we're looking at what happened in 1955, you have to be determined really that you will win, and that you will be determined to make a commitment, a life commitment, because at the end of the day, this is not about an action. This is about a life. The decision about who gets to control, what the society is about, whether in fact, people get, decent education or they destroy the Department of Education, whether people are able to vote or being denied the vote, whether people are made, snatched off the street or whether they have due process. So people need to understand that what's being engaged in